Have you ever told someone how much they hurt you, but somehow you ended up apologizing? Well, congratulations. You just met blame shifting. Let's unpack it. Welcome to FAYDESSA. I'll see you right after this. Today we're talking about blame shifting. What it looks like, why people do it, how to tell it from normal conflict, and exactly what to say when it happens. Now, this is whether you're on the receiving end or you're the person who keeps doing it. Yeah. Now, you may be wondering, well, I know the meaning of blame shifting. What does she want to tell me that I don't know of? Relax. Stay with me. All right? Let's define what blame shifting is. Blame shifting is when someone doesn't assume responsibility for their behavior. And that's by turning the blame onto you or someone else. The funny thing or the strange thing about blame shifting is it can be obvious or sometimes super subtle. The result might be you doubt yourself, you feel responsible for their feelings, and you find yourself walking on eggshells. Now, have you ever heard these expressions? You're just too sensitive. If you had not done that, I wouldn't have reacted. I only yelled because you made me. I know, right? Now let's talk about why people blame shift. People blame shift to protect their ego. You know, the truth is sometimes taking responsibility for some people, feels like weakness to them. They always need to be on top of their game. So anything that is going to make them feel less than the supposed kings and queens that they are, they ain't gonna do it. 2, they want to avoid shame. If they admit fault or take on responsibility, they feel that they have been exposed to the whims and caprices of the world, of this world, if I may use that terminology. So what they do is they deflect. And number 3, control. If you look like the problem, they take the driver's seat. Makes sense, right? I mean, not exactly makes sense, but it is what it is. They would control you. They would control the conversation. They will influence your reaction and then blame you for that reaction. Dang, that's wild though. You know how sometimes you're trying to keep your cool in a conversation and then you're triggered and you just give in to throwing tantrums. Now, when that happens, they have that control over you and then they will blame you for reacting that way that you choose to react. Let's move on. And number 4, learned behavior. Sometimes blame shifters grow up in an environment where accountability was never modeled. Accountability most times was punished. So yeah, learned behavior. Now the bottom line of this is it is less about you and more about their discomfort with being wrong. Now you might be wondering, where does blame shifting happen? Or some of you may say relationships. Yes, blame shifting does happen in relationships, but it also happens in the place of work, with your co-workers, with your friends, sometimes even family. Yes. Picture this. At work, you flag a mistake in a report, and suddenly you're the one who didn't give clear instructions. With friends, sometimes you might call out a hurtful joke, and suddenly you're the uptight one. Like, leave a little. Why can't you just take a joke? Does that sound familiar to you? I'm sure it sounds familiar to a couple of us. All right? In family, you say you feel neglected, and then you're referred to as the ungrateful one. That hurts. I'm sorry if you've ever been in that situation. That really hurts. Let's move on. Anywhere people feel cornered, anywhere at all, blame shifting pops up like Wi-Fi signals. You cannot miss it. Now the next is, how do you tell it's blame shifting? Not every misunderstanding, not every argument, not every conflict can be referred to as blame shifting. Sometimes 2 people might just see things differently, and that's normal. That is human. But when it's blame shifting, it usually comes like a pattern, like it is pattern based. Let me show you what I mean. So the number one point is, it is a pattern, not a one-off. Anybody can deflect blame once in a while. We're human, our ego will kick in sometimes. But when you notice that every single conflict somehow lands back at your feet, then that is a cycle. That's not a one-off. For example, sometimes you bring up being hurt by their tone, and you find yourself suddenly apologizing for starting drama. Next week, you might call them out for canceling date plans, and suddenly you are referred to as the clingy partner. I mean, if the storyline is always rewritten to show that you are wrong, that's a pattern, and an unhealthy one at that. Point two, they never own responsibility. Accountability sounds like, you're right, I snapped at you, I will do better. You validate and then you make resolutions. It's that easy. Now, blame shifting sounds like, I only snapped because you were nagging. Again, there's a shift, and that's why it's called blame shifting. Yeah. You see, emotional intelligence is a skill. It is your power. And when a conversation is ongoing and you see that tension is high, tempers are high, the power you have in shifting that conversation is through your use of emotional intelligence. And when I say emotional intelligence, I mean, how do you respond in that situation? Your response can either make or mar the result of that conversation. And I wish people really could understand the power they have when it comes to shifting conversation. For the blame shifter trying to have control over you, your response can either put them in check and wonder, okay, what I'm doing is really not working, or make them have more power, more control over you. So see the difference. Accountability admits the action. The other one, called blame shifting, transfers it back to you, back at you. And if you think back and realize that you rarely hear a genuine apology, chances are you are dealing with a blame shifter. You're in a blame shifting situation. Now, point three, projection. This one is very sneaky because they accuse you of the very thing they are doing, right? They're being dismissive. Suddenly you're the one who doesn't listen. They forgot something important. Now you are the forgetful one. It's a lot of delusional stuff, really. It's like playing emotional Uno. They throw the exact card they should be holding. Number four, the story keeps changing to make you look wrong. You'll notice the goalpost move, right? At first, the issue was that you overreacted. Now it moves to, you always do this. Classic blame shifting move. Then it becomes, last month you embarrassed them. The conversation shifts from the original problem until somehow you're a villain in 5 different scenarios you never signed up for. So here's the test. When conflict happens, does the other person actually pause and hold their part? Or do they constantly twist it back at you? Now, if it's the latter, you're not crazy. You're simply dealing with a blamer. Here is how to react when you are on the receiving end. So you've spotted it. How do you respond without losing your peace? Because that's most important. Number 1, pause before defending yourself. Blame shifters want you to start spiraling. Don't feed the drama. Take a breath. Number 2, stick to the facts. Instead of arguing over their spin, go back to the original issue. State it clearly. Yesterday, you raised your voice. That's the issue. Simple, clear, factual. Capish? Number 3, name it calmly. You don't need to shout, "You're a blame shifter!" Nah, you don't need none of that. You can say, "It feels like you're putting this back on me," and that's not accurate. That's it. No over explaining, no over clarity. Just name it calmly. And number 4, set boundaries. Example, I'm not going to keep talking if the blame is going to be put on me. And you have to mean it. Okay? Offer a reset. Sometimes saying, "Let's take a break and revisit when we can stay on the issue," diffuses the tension. The power is not letting them drag you in circles. Now I want to talk long term. How do you handle blame shifting long term? Basically, I mean, if this keeps happening, here is your survival kit. Validate yourself. If it means writing things down so you don't fall for their gaslight later, please do. Share with a trusted friend. "Hey, this is going on. Am I crazy or what?" That could be your reality check. Protect your peace. Limit conversations if they don't want to own their part. It's that simple. And the last but not the least, escalate wisely. Now, if it's a case of something going on in your place of work, it might mean looping in a manager, HR manager, line manager. But if it's in relationships, sometimes it means therapy. Other times, it means walking away. Now, if you are the one blame shifting, you might want to increase the volume a little bit. Sometimes you are the blame shifter. Sometimes I may be the blame shifter. And owning that doesn't make you or me the villain. It just makes us self-aware. Here is how to shift gears. Catch yourself. When you feel defensive, take a pause. Say, "I need a second to think." That pause is powerful enough to save you. Use I language. I was frustrated, not "you made me frustrated." See what I did there? Exactly. Practice accountability. I snapped at you and that was wrong. I will do better. That's it. And then you actually do better. And number 4, invite perspective. Help me understand how that felt for you. Sometimes when I say things to somebody, I'm in a conflict with somebody, and I express myself and they say the words back at me, right? It helps that person, for instance, let's call him Kunle. It helps Kunle get a better perspective of how his actions affected me. It helps him validate my feelings also. And if you're validating, it doesn't mean that the person's feelings are right or wrong. I always say that. Once you validate a person's feeling, tension will calm down. Tempers would be doused. That is your power. Validate and then invite perspective also for yourself so you know how to introspect and know how to respond. And I'll say, do the work. Therapy, journaling, prayer, self-reflection, whatever keeps you honest, do it. Now, this very question, when to stay and when to leave. If someone shows genuine accountability and change, healing is possible. But if blame shifting is their default setting and they ignore your boundaries, let me say it again. If blame shifting is their default setting and they ignore your boundaries, sometimes the healthiest move is to walk away. So next time you find yourself apologizing for something you didn't even do, pause, rewind, and check. Is this me, or am I carrying someone else's blame? Now, I hope this video is going to help us to truly reflect on relationship dynamics, our relationship dynamics and patterns, and influence decisions we need to take moving forward. And if this spoke to you, hit the subscribe button and share with a friend or two. Till I come your way again, live, love, and be happy always. It is bye for now. Bye-bye.